Is it enough battery life for it?
Yeah.
Okay. To not shut it off, if you just press record, it'll just it'll hold it on. Oh, okay. Gotcha. All right. Let's see. We got about 4 minutes. I'll kind of get started a little bit. Let me draw up here. All right. Almost got that time there. I want to apologize for the other day that our audio sound was. We're having some technical difficulty with our audio. Good morning. Good morning, Lori. So just want to say that the audio, the other day, which was on Tuesday, was acting up, so we had to figure out how to fix that, so we had to cut it short, unfortunately. Anyways, I'm going to kind of bring up exactly what where I left off from on Tuesday, but I'm also going to go over some of the questions too. So what I brought up yesterday was designing an exercise routine. A lot of people always ask us, what's the best type of exercise to help promote better breathing? So it's a very tricky question with a very long answer. Every exercise is based off of the person, their diagnosis, what complications they have, not just with their disease, but like let's say they have a bad hip, let's say they have one lung, let's say they have a cardiac complication, let's say they have a mixture of cardiac and pulmonary complications. So it's all based off of the person's diagnosis on how they are physically. So you can't just start an exercise routine that I make up for 100,000 people. It's all based off of per individual. Okay, so it's unique, but you always want to be strategic. So anyways, as I bring this up, let me mull this over a little bit here. So, all right, on a Borg scale, for people that don't know, a Borg scale, and Borg is spelled B-O-R-G, Borg. That's basically a subjective number, a scale of how you feel subjectively out of breath. So it's from 0 all the way to 10. Okay. When we lay it out now, when we lay this out on like when I'm teaching somebody what a Borg scale is so they can understand, this is a very important scale. It might seem like it's ridiculous but it's a very important scale to use. So 0 to 10 being out of breath. So this is a work of breathing. Borg scale is just a work of breathing. So I'm going to put in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 to complete 0 to 10. So 10 being the worst out of breath, 0 being the least out of breath. Now when I'm working out, I'll do something like this where I divide out into a few sections here. So 0, 1, 2, and 3 just means that out of breath, the person, the subject, the person shouldn't be very winded whatsoever. This is a workout zone we never want to be in. We don't ever want to be at a 0, 1, 2, and 3. So like out of breath wise, when you're working out, if you're not pushing yourself a little bit, or at least getting your work of breathing a little higher, you're not going to tolerate a lot. So 4, 5, and 6 is where we say it's very heart healthy. So that's heart healthy. That keeps the heart very nice and happy. So how out of breath would I feel at a 6? How out of breath do you think? So I would be winded, but it would be very manageable. Okay? 7 is a number telling you to slow down or stop. Slow down or stop. Sorry. 8, 9, and 10 is you're completely out of breath. I'm just going to do it like this because I was going to put X's there instead, like the person's dead, but that's not realistic. So 8, 9, and 10 means I'm completely out of breath. Obviously, I never want to work out in those zones. So another way to look at a Borg scale is look at a talk test. And that's something we utilize in here a lot, is a talk test in line with a Borg scale. So at a 10, let's say somebody's working out and somebody said, Alex, I'm at a 10. I'll be like, no, you're not. It's like, well, no, I'm telling you I'm at a 10. I'm completely out of breath right now. It's like, but if you were completely out of breath, how could you be talking? So we use talk test. At a 10, you couldn't be able to say one single word. Your anxiety might be at a 10, but your work of breathing is obviously not a 10 because you're able to vocalize. If the person was doing this, you know, they're huffing and puffing, they can't vocalize at all, then obviously they're either at a 9 or a 10. Their work of breathing is too high. So a 9, obviously, you wouldn't be able to say anything. 8, I would be able to say one word every breath. 7, I would be able to say 2 words every breath. 6, 3 words every breath. 5, 4 words every breath. 4, 5 words every breath. Okay? So if I was at an 8, subjectively or, you know, objectively, I would be looking like this. You know, this is how my mannerisms would be, is let's say I'm exercising and somebody asks me, how out of breath do you feel, Alex? And I'm doing something like this. My breathing is manageable. It means that my work of, I'm vocalizing one word every time I have to take a breath. So if I'm vocalizing one word every breath, that means I'm at an 8. I'm 2 out of breath. Okay? 7, 2 words every breath. My breathing is manageable. They're like that, saying 2 words every breath. Now, if somebody's saying 3 words or more, or 4 words, which I like the best, 4 words or more, like, my breathing is manageable. Okay? They're able to say that without having to struggle to say that, then that person is within a good zone with their work of breathing. So on this right here, on this graph, this exercise graph that I'm making, I have it from 1 to 6. This is still technically a Borg scale. It's just I don't ever want you to work out at a 0, and I definitely don't ever want you to work out at a 7, 8, 9, and 10. So that's why it's only 1 to 6 on here. Okay? So I'm going to erase this now. Okay. Now, I need to be over here. I need to be at 40 to 60, 60 to 75, and then 75 to 80% of my maximum heart rate. So if somebody would ask me, what is your maximum heart rate? And it's like, well, your maximum heart rate is always going to be 220 minus your age. Let's say my age is 85 years old. Okay, we're just going to pretend it's 85 years old. I should have put that in parentheses, by the way, because the math would actually be different. Okay, so let's say I'm 85 years old. 220 minus 85 equals 135. Okay? So I'm just going to plug in these numbers into these sections right here. Okay? So 135 times 0.4 is 54. And then 135 times 0.6 is 81. And then 81 to 135 times 0.75 is going to be 101. And the 135 times 0.8 is going to be 107. And obviously this is 101. Okay, so my pulse rate range is from 54 to 107 beats per minute because my maximum heart rate is 135, and I got that number from taking 220. It's always 220. 220 minus the person's age. I pretended I'm 85 years old. So my pulse rate range is from 54 to 107. Now, if I told somebody, I want you to work out at a Borg scale of 5, okay? So let's say I want somebody to work out at a Borg scale of a 5. So let's say currently the person's, let's say, at a 1. So they'll increase their work of breathing. They're going to stay up here at a 3, meaning they're not going to feel very out of breath at all. Okay, they're going to stay at a 3, meaning they're going to start pumping, pushing like on a bike or on or walking on a treadmill. They're just going to go very slow. The point of a warm-up is to speed up the heart a little bit, get the body warmed up. So we're going to warm up for 2 minutes. I'll have this person warm up for 2 minutes. Every 2 minutes, I want them to increase their work of breathing. I'm going to say, I want you to be at 5, I want you to get up to a level 5. So the person will increase their work of breathing to a 5 or keep their pulse rate from 81 to 101 beats per minute. So if they don't know if they're at a 5, they can look at their pulse, and that's where the pulse rate range would be, keeping that person safe. Safety is a big concern. We always want to make sure people are safe when they work out because they're going to work out at home. So up here, anytime anything on these zones, you're only staying up there for about 30 to 40 seconds, not the whole duration of the exercise. 30 to 40 seconds. So up here, how long we're going to stay up here? 30 seconds, 40 seconds? I'll say 30 seconds. After 30 seconds, then the person will decrease their speed or their resistance, dropping their work of breathing down. The point of doing this is I want my patients to understand how to increase their work of breathing, which is very easy, but also how to control and decrease their work of breathing without having to stop. Okay, as you can see, I'm not having this go all the way down to a 0 like at a stop point. I want the person to still keep pumping, but at a very slow pace. Now down over here at a 3, I'm only going to stay there for 2 minutes. Okay, then I'll say after that, I'll have the person go up to, let's say, a 6 for 10 seconds. Now, I thought the range was 30 to 40 seconds. Well, 6 is the highest level of activity, of endurance level that you want to be at any given point. It's the max. So I don't want the person to be feeling a tremendous amount of breathing for a long period of time because it might discourage that person. So I'm only going to let them stay up to a 6, keeping their pulse rate from 101 to 107 because the person's 85 years old, right? So I'm only going to have their pulse rate range from 101 to 107 beats per minute, which is 75 to 80% of their maximum heart rate for only 10 seconds. Then I'm going to drop it, let's say I drop it back down. I could stay down over here for 20 seconds, completing 30 seconds in these zones. And then I'll drop it back down over here, another 2-minute break, which is basically you're not stopping, you're still moving, right? And then let's say I go up to a 4, I stay up there for 40 seconds, drop it back down, and I'll keep repeating these, and I'll just add up all these up, and my total timing of exercise, let's say it was a 20-minute exercise on a bike with a perceived exertion rate from anywhere from 4 to a 6 on an RPE. RPE stands for perceived, it's your rate of perceived exertion. So it's what you're anticipating your work of breathing is going to be during the exercise. So the RPE would be averaging around 4 to a 6, okay? We're basing this off of our maximum heart rate, keeping the person safe. Now, if somebody did something ridiculous, like they did something like this, where they started at a 1, and this is something I see in therapy a lot, and that's why I never want people to go to a gym first. I want them to know how to breathe with an exercise. I want them to know how to exercise properly, and they make the determination if they want to perpetuate that, increase the time, or increase their length, increase the change diversity on the exercise. But anyways, let's say the person did something like this. They weren't being monitored by a clinician like me, and they increase the work of breathing up to a 6, and they stay up there the whole duration of their exercise. That's the worst thing anybody could ever do, because you will wipe yourself out. You don't want to work out the next day later or the other day after. You probably don't even want to work out after that ever again, because you stayed at a work of breathing that made you very uncomfortable throughout the whole duration of the exercise. That's too much. That's going to be too taxing on you. So we don't want something like that. So you only stay up in these levels for 30 to 40 seconds. You go into any treadmill, any good treadmill, like an iFit or something like that, go onto a good treadmill, and even with the advanced runners and joggers, they never stay at a high RPE for a long duration. They'll only stay up here for periods of time, okay? Sometimes on advanced levels, they'll stay up here for like 2 minutes, 3 minutes maybe, but not for the whole duration of their exercise, depending on how advanced somebody wants to be. So on an exercise routine, we want to, let me bring up the guidelines here real quick. On exercise routines, now the guidelines I'm going over are the American Association of Cardiovascular Pulmonary Rehabilitation. So they're the guidelines for pulmonary rehabilitation programs. So when I go over some of these guidelines, I have to abide by the guidelines stated in with this organization. Now, a part of the guidelines is the complete, well, I mean, there's a lot of things on guidelines, but calculating METs for levels of WDTs. So METs are metabolic rates, okay? So when we're exercising, we want to know how much does your body consume at any given point. So what we usually do is this calculation on here, which I, of course, will do it for you. So let's say the person, and you can always just rewind this to look at the graph again if you want to start an exercise routine. A good exercise routine is working out for at least 12 minutes or more. I prefer 15 minutes and perpetuate your time from there. Every day increase the time. So let's say you want to do 3 days a week. One day, let's say it was on a Monday. Monday you would do, let's just say 12 minutes starting out. On Wednesday, because you're picking 3 days a week, on Wednesday you'll just, from 12 minutes, you will increase it by 1 more minute. So you'll be a 13-minute exercise on Wednesday. Then on Friday, you know, let's say you're working out on Friday. Friday it wouldn't be 13, it'll be 14 minutes continuous. Every day you should be increasing the time. Now, according to the guidelines through the American Association of Cardiovascular Pulmonary Rehabilitation, that's the ACVPR, my calculated oxygen consumption. So this can be a little tough. By the way, hello everybody, good morning. This can be a little tough to understand, so I'm going to make it as simple as possible. Your body needs a certain amount of oxygen going into the body itself, okay? A certain amount of oxygen. So every time we breathe right now, if everyone can do me a big favor and just take a deep breath. That one breath you just took, 30% of that oxygen just got subtracted out of blood, and it just went, 30% just went to the brain of that one breath you just took. 20% just went to the heart. That's 50% of every breath you've ever taken ever since you were born went to those main organs. 3 organs that consume the most amount of oxygen is your liver, heart, and brain. So just keep that in mind that your body needs to consume oxygen. So at resting, let's say it only consumes a little bit of oxygen. During exercise, obviously it will consume more, okay? So we tend to look at this as a VQ ratio, okay? We look at it as a VQ ratio, but instead of me saying VQ and all this other jargon, let me just kind of draw it up like this. Okay, so it's 1 milliliter per kilogram per minute of oxygen consumption. How much oxygen goes into the blood every time you breathe? It's not 100%. How much oxygen, if it was 100%, think about it. If you saw somebody smoking a cigarette, as soon as they smoke the cigarette, what do they exhale? The cigarette smoke. Okay, how much of that cigarette smoke actually made it to the blood? 4 to 6%. So if you ever get on Jeopardy and they ever ask that question, you'll get it right. It's 4 to 6% that makes it into the blood. That's why when somebody smokes, not 100% was deposited into the blood. Only a very, very small amount, okay? And also, that's the same thing with me breathing in air. As I breathe in air, the body will only pull in the oxygen, let's say, okay, into the blood. We have different inerts like, you know, xenon gas, we have nitrogen, helium, all sorts of things. But you have to understand that 4 to 6% of the oxygen that you breathe in makes it to the blood, okay? So that means, assuming that your alveolar capillary membranes aren't thickened up like, you know, with idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis or another type of lung disease, then we're assuming oxygen is being transported properly through those membranes, okay? So anyways, 1 milliliter per kilogram per minute. So I weigh, and it has to go off of your current weight. So I weigh 200 pounds, divided by 2.2, it's about 90 kilograms. So I need to consume 90 milliliters of oxygen, not air, oxygen, okay? Assuming the oxygen from the air is making it into my blood. If that's not the case, then I need supplemental oxygen to keep the oxygen sats above 88%, depending on the workout. So 90 milliliters of oxygen per minute. Okay. So depending on the exercise, the VQ ratio, regardless of what all this is, because this just sounds like a lot of confusing stuff, instead of just looking like this, look at like, I want you to look at it in a different way. When you exercise, depending on the exercise, let's move this, make it into a graph, because I can make this super easy. I'm just trying to figure out an easy way for you guys to understand, just in case you don't understand what I'm talking about with this. So anyways, I'll draw up a ramp, okay? I'll put 0 right here, I'll put 10 right here. And then I'll just write out the numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Okay, and then here, all right, so I'll put this as an RPE. And what does RPE stand for? Rate of perceived exertion. So the more intense the exercise could be, the more, what is this column going to be? This side's going to be volume, okay? Let's just look at, I'm just making it easy. Volume. So this would be 0, this would be 10. Actually, let's put this, depending on the person's height. Let's say the tallest, well, let's say somebody who's 6 foot tall. Let's just say, okay, 6 foot tall, this would be 5,330 milliliters of volume. And we can even do it like this. Actually, if this is confusing, I can easily write it like this. Respiratory rate. Okay? Up here, let's say, would be 30. Down here, I would say, let's say, bare minimum 8. 8 breaths per minute. So if I was going to work out, and I can do it like this. Let's see. Say 20, 21, 2, all the way up, and then 8, all the way up to 20. All right, so let's say my exercise, and from a 0, 1, 1, and 2, that would be, so let's say that's standing up. Okay? And let's say 4, 5, and 6 on an RPE would be walking on a slight hill to maybe a more decent sized hill. Okay? Okay. 7 and 8, let's say that's jogging. 9 and 10, let's divide those in, and let's say 9 and 10, 9 would be running. 10, let's say picking up grocery bags going up a staircase, which would be a very high intensity, right? Let's say it's a high intensity. Let's say stairs. So anyways, if I'm going to be standing, and let's say my rate of perceived exertion, my anticipated, is going to be around a 2. That means my respiratory rate most likely would probably be around 12 breaths per minute. Let's say I was going to do a hill walk. I was going to walk up a hill, then my anticipated work of breathing must be at least around 20 plus breaths per minute if I was going to walk up a hill. Okay? So needless to say, I think you understand now, the more intense, or how intense the exercise is, the respiratory rate has to be very high. What I usually see with people in this program, what they'll do first, before they understand the habits and I start teaching those good habits, what they usually would learn, what I would see first is people will slow their breathing down during intense exercise. It's the worst thing you could do. Your body's trying to get rid of CO2 and you're slowing your breathing down. You know, you never want a slower respiratory rate when you're exercising. Okay? sometimes patients don't understand the difference between resting or meditational breathing versus exercise breathing. Exercise breathing is going to be more rapid. You know, when you're meditating or you're sitting down, resting, trying to relax, your respiratory rate most likely wouldn't be very high, you know, because you could slow your breathing down, that's fine. But when you're exercising, the demand of air coming into your body, the demand of oxygen going into your cells are going to be more needed. Okay, I'm going to need more of that. So if you're walking on a hill, and let's say you're only doing 8 breaths per minute, when that hill walk is going to require 20 breaths per minute, it's not going to be enough. That means your oxygen is going to be low, your CO2 is going to be high because your ventilation is off. You're not pulling in enough oxygen, and you're definitely not getting rid of enough CO2. So that's a big problem. That's a very big problem. We don't ever want that to happen. We don't want somebody to slow their breathing down and they feel like they're passing out. So they have to understand, each and every patient has to understand how to breathe with the exercise. Okay? So let me see on here. Actually, I'm not going to need this. Let's go over some of these questions really quick. I'm going over some questions. If you have questions, good morning everybody. If you have questions, please write them out in the comment section. I'll be happy to answer any of those questions. All right, first question, why do I run out of air with even a little activity? So I'm not sure who this is from. So first off, I have to understand, when you're running out of air, like you're out of breath, or like, so I'm not trying to be ambiguous, like I'm trying to be difficult. I just want to understand the question a little more thoroughly. Why do I run out of air even with little activity? Well, can you be out of breath because you're out of shape? Yes. Can you be out of breath because you have a heart problem? Yes. Can you be out of shape because you are weak? Yes. It has nothing to do with, you know, depending on the activity, somebody feels like, oh, I'm out of breath. You know, are you completely out of breath? It's so vague to say I'm winded, because no one understands what that really is. What does that mean? You're a little winded. It just means that are you completely out of breath? You know, are you like what? So we don't like to use that. We like to use Borg scales. Somebody says with a little activity, okay, they get very winded. How winded does that person get? Use a Borg scale. Give me a number, 10 being the worst, 0 being the least. If you're at a 10, let's say you felt like you're at a 10. Let's say the person felt like they were at a 10. Did you confirm it with a talk test? Did you look at your heart rate? Because your work of breathing might still be in a manageable zone. People feel like being winded when you're working out is a disease. That is not true. I never met an athlete that didn't get a little winded when they ran in the Olympics. You know, that's just what happens. Being a little winded is not a problem. You know, it's just being completely out of breath. That's a different story. So I would love to answer this question, but there's a lot of reasons why somebody can be winded. You know, if somebody sits down a lot, they're very sedentary, they don't get up very often, they don't exercise, they definitely don't do any types of breathing techniques, you know, of course that person's going to be winded. You know, the body relies on what it has, and if the body's weak, it's going to utilize whatever, even if it's weak, it's going to utilize whatever it has. And if it's weak, it might not function all the way, meaning somebody's trying to exercise to get out of breath too quickly because they might not be pulling enough air in, might not be exhaling enough CO2 out, you know, all that stuff. Does excess mucus inhibit getting oxygen into your lungs? Yes, it does. Yes, it depends on how severe it is, but yes, it could, absolutely. Would love to see one of your Zoom exercises days. Yeah, if you ever want to go into the exercises, you can easily just call us up. You know, just call us up and just basically state that you want to try out one of the programs for like a day or two to make a decision. What's wrong with that? There's nothing wrong with that. You know, you have to sign a waiver, you know, but yeah, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. You can easily just call us up and say, hey, Alex, I want to go into your program, you know, or you can just call up and say, hey, I want to try out the program with Alex. You know, I want to try out the program with Shannon or Millie or Melanie or, you know, just, I mean, anybody, really. I mean, that's what we're here for, you know. So anyways, let's see, trying to help reducing my COPD flares. All right, so with COPD flare-ups, basically call it an exacerbation, okay? Depending on the severity of the flare-up, it could be called an exacerbation. What is it? What is an exacerbation? Okay, I heard some people say exasperation. It's exacerbation. Okay, so that's the word, exacerbation. What is COPD exacerbation? What is an exacerbation itself? It's a heightening of current symptoms. So if somebody already has lower oxygen, they might have lower oxygen than that. If they have chronic congestion, they might have a more inflamed amount of more abundant, congestion coming out. And so that's what a flare-up is. It's a heightening. All right. When I look at an exacerbation, I tend to look at it as an exacerbation bomb. As soon as the person gets a small fever or they're starting to get a flare-up, they are a ticking time bomb at that point. That's what we see as clinicians. So I tend to look at an exacerbation like this. I'll draw up a bomb, okay? And that bomb is going to be called 911 or death. Then I'll draw up a fuse. From every single germ ever known, okay, from anybody who's getting sick, what is usually the first symptom? Anybody? First symptom of getting sick, what is usually the first symptom? Fever, low-grade fever. So as soon as that person has a low-grade fever, the fuse just got lit. As we brought up more symptoms, let's say you have uncontrollable wheezing, okay? That fuse is actually burnt almost all the way up to here. This is almost a point of no return. Okay, meaning wheezing, you take your medications. Let's say you take your respiratory medication to control your wheezing, but it doesn't do anything. You take it again and it still doesn't do anything. It's a heightening and it's uncontrollable. So somebody would have uncontrollable wheezing. Let's say wheezing that's uncontrollable. Remember, not just wheezing, it's uncontrollable. You take the medication that's supposed to subside the wheezing, but it doesn't do anything. All right, also maybe under the point of no return, the SpO2, your oxygen, let's say usually stays on the lower end. Usually it's always 96, 98 maybe, but today during my exacerbation, it's at a rough 88%. And then with a little bit of movement, my oxygen drops dramatically and it takes forever for it to come up. That's SpO2 being very sensitive. You had these large roller coaster rides where your SpO2, normal SpO2 usually goes up, goes down, goes up, goes down, but stays within normal limits, okay? And that's usually from 88 to 100% oxygen, okay? So as it fluctuates, what we don't like is where the fluctuations are on the lower side and it drips down going lower. We don't like that, okay? So wheezing and your SpO2 values are just dropping quickly with a little bit of movement, and it's taking forever for it to come up. That's the point of no return. Now, for congestion, let's say I have green, yellow, sputum. That's the wick would have burnt out about right there. So as the symptoms progress and get worse and worse and worse and worse, the person is getting too close to this exacerbation bomb, meaning the person most likely will go either to the hospital if they don't do something about it. The rule of thumb is, regardless of all the symptoms I can put up there, the rule of thumb is, as soon as you get that first symptom, it doesn't matter if you don't think it's a fever, it does not matter. As soon as let's say your normal temperature is 98.6, we have people that just have a small increase in temperature of 98, from 98.6 to 98.7, and they're still considered they have a fever, okay? So even though it doesn't seem like it would be, we have people that are that sensitive, all right? So it's all based off of the person, of course. But it doesn't matter how many symptoms I put up here. As soon as you get that first symptom, what is that first symptom? Usually a fever, low-grade fever. As soon as you get that, you call that doctor, Okay, you call your doctor up, and your doctor will be, can easily say something like, what kind of symptoms you have. And if you're really good at describing your symptoms, then your doctor will be like, oh yeah, that's that thing that's going around. Stop by CVS or Walgreens, pick up the medication, call me in 7 days. There you go, you just fixed yourself. Versus you wait till the last minute until you're near dead, and then you're being intubated, you're putting on, you have to, come on oxygen. You're waiting to, you're waiting at the last moment. Never ever procrastinate. Anytime you start having a first symptom of anything that you feel is questionable, no matter what, don't wait. It's the worst thing you could do is wait. As soon as you get that first symptom, call your doctor, okay? If your doctor says go to the emergency room, then you go to the emergency room. But if you're really good at describing your symptoms, he or she, your doctor, might actually understand what you have. But if it's a little vague, then your doctor might tell you to come in or tell you to go to the emergency room. Okay? We don't want this to get anywhere into here, ever. Fever, fever, as soon as you get that fever, what do? We call that doctor, right? Okay. I've had an exacerbation in 2 years ever since I started a long rehab program. Marty, the HRN one, because I remember you were in here. The lung rehab program, ours, yes. Oh, good. So you haven't had an exacerbation for 2 years since you started rehab. We find that very common. We dropped hospital readmission rates down to 2.4%. Not long do these flare-ups last. How long do? Okay, so the flare-ups exacerbations can vary. So they can last for a week to 2 weeks. It depends on how severe, like how sensitive your body is. If your body's very immunocompromised and the slightest little thing that happens to it causes you to get a reaction, then the wait time might be a little bit longer, could be short, depending on how fast you react. If you have a fever, all right, and it didn't get up to here yet, most likely it wouldn't be a very long process to get over the flare-up. It wouldn't be a long time that you have to wait. If you wait until you're at point of no return, where it's near death, the rehabilitation might take past 6 months. Okay, because you're waiting until you're near dead, until the body's pretty much giving up. You should never wait to that point. Especially if you're immunocompromised. Does anybody know what immunocompromised? It means your immune system is suppressed. It's constantly fighting all these infections and all these things. It's working doubly hard, and it doesn't have time. I hate to say that, but it's like it doesn't have time for those other new things that are happening with you. So never ever wait to the last minute. But yeah, it could vary. But if you start early, as soon as you get the first symptom, most likely it's a very short time. If you wait until everything else is just at its worst case scenario, it might be a very long time. Okay, so always, as soon as you get that first symptom, call that doctor ASAP, or whoever oversees you as a clinician. Let's see, I did testing to get Xipher valve put in. The results were the lung with the most damage happens to have the most blood flow. How is this possible? Well, I tend to look at the anatomical physiology of a body anatomically, kind of like this. And it makes sense if you really look at it. Let's say we draw up a lung, okay? Just one lung. And mind the artwork of my lung. I know it looks like a teardrop, but it's not meant to look that way. Just pretend this is a lung, okay? We have the apex, basal areas, segments, okay? The top, why is the top more vascular than the one on the bottom? Well, follow gravity, okay? If I put fluid on any vertical axis plane, what does it do? It follows gravity, so it's going to go down, okay? So what I'm trying to say is you put blood in here, where does it usually go to? Down at the bottom. Why is the top more vascular? Because it's trying to aid in the gravity, right? So because more blood is following gravity, if you keep this more vascular, okay, then it can compensate by pushing some of the blood flow up because gravity's being pulled down, right? Gravity's pulling down. So the top apex of your lungs are usually very vascular, while the bottoms are not as vascular, all right? Just because of the anatomical physiology of the body itself. All right, so on Xipher valves, now remember on Xipher valves, any type like with Pulmonx, Innova, we work very closely with those companies, but one of the requirements is you want to do pulmonary rehab before and after. Does anybody know the reason why? Why would you, when you want to get a valve done, or even when you want to get chest, like you have to have chest, you know, some type of chest surgery where they have to go in maybe for your heart, maybe even for your lungs or anything like that. Why is pulmonary rehab required? Okay, so people that don't do pulmonary rehab before they do, let's say they lied, even though you can't, because they show evidence that you went to pulmonary rehab, but let's just pretend that somebody said, I went to pulmonary rehab, you know, but didn't actually do pulmonary rehab. They got the Xipher valves. The chances of those valves actually coming out are very high. Versus if you do pulmonary rehab, we stretch out the lungs to its max because those little valves, you know, they're wedged in. They're not sutured in. They're wedged in. So if you open those chambers, the airways up more, it will obviously dislodge the Xipher valve, okay? So with hyperinflation therapy, with good pulmonary rehabilitation, like what we do here at HRN, you know, we're basically giving worst case scenario where we're stretching out the lungs preemptively. So when they wedge it in, the chance of that Xipher valve being dislodged and coming out, you know, it'll just come out. You know, to prevent it from dislodging, we just stretch out the lungs before and after. So the chances of them being dislodged are very, 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 very minimal. Okay. All right. Is there another way to break mucus up besides taking Mucinex? Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. There's a lot of good ways to break up mucus. You can do chest physiotherapy, and you can easily do chest physiotherapy by yourself, simply by taking your hand and not slapping. You're going to cup your hand to create resonant sound, meaning when I clap a cupped hand, okay, onto a surface, it'll cause sound and vibration. In my lungs, as I'm doing this, as I'm doing chest physiotherapy on somebody, it'll cause the vibrations, cause enough vibrations to vibrate that mucus to bring it up to a certain point in order for me to cough it out. So I can cup my hand, and I'll lay down flat, like on a bed or something, and to help me out with gravity, I can easily put some pillows underneath my hip while I'm laying down flat. Well, my hip's a little bit elevated to allow gravity to slide that congestion down a little bit more, right? So then as I'm laying flat, I'll cup my hand, start in my lower rib, work my way to the upper side. Not up to down, it's down to up. You're trying to pull the gravity up. Pull the congestion up. So you cup your hands, and you actually start, you'll start doing chest physiotherapy. Never do it like this, like you're just patting yourself. You want to cup your hands and cause that vibration. Then I would promote good breathing throughout it. Now mind you, you're laying flat. Every 10 minutes on one side, I'll tell the person to cough. If the congestion is very thick, I'll have the person drink water and have them wait about 15 minutes to allow the globulate and mast cells to produce more fluid. You know, and that happens when you drink water. So you want to drink water. Will turmeric help open lungs and help with inflammation, and how much should someone take? Okay, so there's not enough evidence base for me to discuss that with turmeric. Okay, there's a lot of things that people come out like saying there's this magic pill that can cure all lung disease. There's no such thing. You know, there's no such thing. A lot of people that, you know, I don't want to say scam you, but a lot of places will pretend that there's something magical because a lot of people want the easy way out. They don't want to do the exercise. They just want to eat something and just sit still and hopefully it takes care of the situation. Nothing like that exists to date. There is nothing out there like that. There's no magical food that you can take to fix all the problems. You know, let's say you have somebody who's in a coma, and I've seen this actually firsthand. That's why I can discuss it. Let's say you have this person who came in on a you know, they had a stroke. You know, God forbid, but let's just say they had a stroke. They're in a coma. Let's just say, okay, and they start getting more, and they just, as they're laying on the gurney on the bed, okay, they just keep getting weaker. So a doctor comes in with a 5-carbon sugar, which is a steroid. They inject the steroid to produce more muscle mass, but it doesn't work. Why didn't it work? Because the person's not exercising. It's a complete waste. So there was this new intern that came in trying to build up muscle. And this exercise physicist came in and says, no, you can't do it like that. He says it's going to be a complete waste. And he says, well, the medication is supposed to help rebuild muscle tissue faster. You say, yes, that is true, but the person has to be able to work out. You're going to have to put electrodes on the person as they take the medication to cause contraction of the muscles, so the muscles can get stimulated so they can get stronger. If you just have the person laying flat, no electrodes to them, to those muscles to stimulate those muscles, and you inject a medication to help rebuild muscle, it will just be a complete waste, okay, because the person's not exercising, all right? There is nothing that can fix that, right? The person has to work out. Let's see. I'm an HRN and love the program, and it's helping me a lot. So glad I found your program. You're very, very welcome. I love hearing that. That's awesome. You know, wait until Friday. We do a 6-minute walk test. You know, no, it's fun, but it's a lot of data collection and everything. But a lot of people, when they try the first 6-minute walk test, they're like, oh, I didn't do so well. Some of the first 6-minute walk tests, because it's only 2 weeks into your program, we do 6-minute walk test twice a month. You know, then we'll do a CAT and things like that. CAT stands for a CPT assessment test. All right. But yeah, I'm glad you're doing really well in the program. Everyone usually does a very, very well job. You know, they come in not being able to do a lot to being able to do a lot more. So yes, it is fantastic. Took a lot to get it to that way, though. Can I have breathing techniques? Sure, take some. I'm not sure what that means. I mean, I know what that means. I think you're trying to ask me, can I show you some breathing techniques? Sure, I can show you some breathing techniques. I can show you some breathing techniques. You ready? Here. First one, I need a therapy band, so let me grab this one here. If I have one that's cut, but I only have a full roll. But is there one over there? Oh, perfect. Thank you. All right. So, first breathing technique. You ready? You got some pen and paper? All right. So, first breathing technique. Oh, you did your 6-minute walk test with Millie? Fantastic. Fantastic. So, I'll take a therapy band, medium strength, elastic therapy band, and then what I'll do is I'll put it around my torso, not going to tie it. All I'm going to do, and I can do this with a scarf, I can do this with a towel, that can at least wrap around my torso, around my chest area and my back, okay? So I'm going to put this on my ribs, all right? It's not around my belly. It's all the way up next to the auxiliary, next to the armpits, okay? I'm going to cross them, just like so, keeping tension there. Like no tension versus tension. So I'm going to keep some tension there. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to breathe in. As I breathe in, I want to fill up my lungs to 100%. And I want to try to keep pulling air into me, even though it feels like nothing else can come in. I want to keep those muscles stimulated as much as possible for a long period of time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cross the therapy bands. Okay, they're not tying them, remember. Crossing them, holding tension, and I'm going to breathe in nice and deep. Then I'm going to exhale. When I breathe in as deep as I could, I fill up my lungs to 100% where I can't add any more in. Then instead of holding my breath to my max, what I'm going to do is try to keep entraining air, trying to bring air into my lungs even though it feels like nothing else is coming in. what's happening is the lung muscles, the muscles in between the ribs, the intercostal and diaphragmatic muscles. So those muscles are, as they're getting contracted, they might be very weak. So you get these small, as you're trying to keep pulling air in, those lungs will start opening up a very little bit where it's not very noticeable. But then after you train more, you keep training the lungs, keep training the lungs, keep training the lungs, and then your lungs are opening up more because now you're building up that strength to bring in more air into your lungs, okay? So you can do that with a TheraBand. Now, for people that don't know, and I don't mind saying this, my mother is actually in the program too. So she had lobe collapse and everything. So the reason why I wanted my mother in here and not somewhere else is because I know what we can do, you know. So the other thing is I found this is I'm using my mother as an example. All right, so I asked my mother, how many times a day are you doing respiratory muscle training? And she said 5 minutes. And I said, you can't do it 5 minutes. It has to be 6 times a day. For 10 minutes. Sessions. So let's say what a person is supposed to be doing is doing respiratory muscle training. Like, let's say it's like just after they eat breakfast, let's say, or just before breakfast, and they do 10 minutes then. Or let's say it's 8 o'clock. Then they'll do another 10 minutes at 12 o'clock. Then they'll do another 10 minutes, you know, at 2 o'clock. They'll just spread it around throughout their day, adding up to 6 times a day. But each session they do with respiratory muscle training is for 10 minutes. So the person has to pick up lung volumes first before we actually show breathing techniques. Because if you're breathing with a very slow, very low volume in your lungs, that means not a lot of air is coming into your body. No matter what breathing techniques I would show you, it would be kind of useless because you're still using a damaged part of your lungs. Where I want you to open up your lungs more to get more surface area, making those lungs that now you just expanded that they weren't being used before to be more dominant in your breathing. Okay, but as long as your volume is building, as it builds past 1,000, usually if it's above 1,500 or better on your incentive spirometer, this is an incentive spirometer, it's if it's at least 1,500 or better, okay, 1,500 or better, you're usually pretty good. 2,000 or better is even better than that, but it's all based off of somebody's height. So let's say the volume wasn't the issue now, okay? Then I'll show breathing techniques. First breathing technique is the 1:1 ratio. 1:1 ratio works incredibly well. So this is 1:1. So every 1 step I take, I breathe in 1 time. The other ratio is the 2:1. Every 2 steps I take, I breathe in 1 time. So let me show you how this works. I take 1 step, I breathe in. Now, how do I breathe in? Halfway. You fill up your lungs halfway, always. Okay. You want to. It might seem unnatural, but that's because you haven't been doing it. If it's unnatural, all right. So you want to fill up your lungs halfway. You want to try to. Okay. So 1 step. I'm using 1:1 right now. 1 step. I breathe in. How deep? Halfway. Right. Okay. Not 100%. Just 50%. Okay. Halfway. So 1 step I inhale. The other step I exhale all the way. 1 step I inhale. 1 step I exhale. 1 step in. 1 step out. As I'm walking, or even jogging, I can easily do that at a fast rate while keeping up with that breathing. Okay? 1:1s are usually used for going up hills or going upstairs. 2:1s are usually used for flat surfaces going for a long distance, or even jogging and running. Okay? But understand, you could use a 1:1 or 2:1. Okay, but specifically, you can use a 1:1 that's usually used for stairs and going uphill for running. Absolutely, I do it. You know, 2:1's a little different. It's a little more trickier. So I pick a marker leg. Let's say my right leg is my marker leg. Just listen to me first. Let's say I take 1 step. What do? Now, how much do I fill up my lungs? Halfway. So the 2:1, I'm actually only filling each step by 1/4 to equal half. Let me demonstrate. 1 step, inhale, 1/4 of the breath. The other step, continue the inhale. to equal half the volume. So I pick a marker leg. Let's say my right leg is my marker leg. The other leg is the continuation leg. So I take one step, inhale. The other leg, what do? The other leg finishes off whatever this marker leg started off with. It can sound a little confusing. Don't let it confuse you. I'm going to make it really simple to understand in just a second. One step inhale, that's my marker leg. Inhale, so what does this do? Continue that, right? Inhale, keep inhaling. Exhale, so every time that marker leg touches the ground, it starts off with an inhale or it starts off with an exhale. Inhale, keep inhaling. Exhale, keep exhaling. All right, so this is a full breath, okay? So inhale, keep inhaling to half. That, I just filled up my lungs halfway. Exhale, keep exhaling. Inhale, keep inhaling. Exhale, keep exhaling. So breathe in, keep breathing in. Exhale, keep exhaling. Okay, very easy. And your respiratory rate should be in sync with your steps. Because as your pace increases, your respiratory rate will increase. That will govern and take care of the VQ ratio problem where you might not be bringing in enough. I see some people doing this is they'll take one step or they'll start walking and they'll do this. Inhale, they're still inhaling, they're still inhaling, still inhaling, still inhaling, still inhaling, and now they're going to exhale, 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 exhale. And they're wondering why they're not doing well. No matter what you do, how much air comes into the blood? 4 to 6%. I brought that up earlier. So whether you do it fast or slow, it's still going to be the same amount. It's not like you breathe in super deep, you're going to pull in a lot more oxygen coming in. It doesn't really work that way. Now, is it 4 to 6% of a gallon of air, or is it 4 to 6% of a teaspoon of air? Does that make sense? Because if you're breathing in and you're breathing in a volume to fill up lungs these size versus lungs that are adult lungs like this size, and you're filling up lungs this size, yeah, it's not going to work. Okay, so we need to fix that volume problem, right? So one step inhale, the other step continue the inhale. The other step exhale, continue the exhale. Inhale, inhale, exhale, exhale. Very simple. As your pace increases, your respiratory rate increases. At this point, you don't have to worry about your CO2 being too high. You definitely don't have to worry about your oxygen as much. Okay, as long as you're pulling enough into your body. Okay, so 1-on-1, 2-on-1. Those are two breathing techniques I'll go over today. The other breathing technique is how to pursed lip breathe properly. Pursed lip breathing is based off of Charles and Boyle's law. Boyle's law, you can look this up. There's Gay-Lussac's law, there's Boyle's law. Okay. Boyle's law is where high pressure follows low pressure. So I want to pursed lip breathe. Now, what's the point of pursed lip breathing? It's not to control. What, does anybody know? Write in the comment section if you know. What is the point of pursed lip breathing? It's not control. What is it? Come on, guys. Come on, guys. I see a lot of people looking at me. Come on. Come on, guys. What's the point of pursed lip breathing? Give me an answer. Come on, you can do it. Give me one answer on the comment section. Pursed lip breathing is not meant to control necessarily. It's to supply pressure because you're pursed lip breathing. You're causing positive end expiratory pressure called PEEP. Relaxing, release CO2. All right, think of it like this. All right, I see a lot of answers coming up here. Think of it like this, okay? If I breathe in like this versus this. Which one got rid of more CO2? The first technique or the second? If the volume was equal to each other, fast or slow, and let's say the volume was still a gallon, whether I did it fast or slow, it was the same exact volume. Meaning you're not getting rid of, because only 4 to 6%, that works on exhale too. Okay? So if you, so just understand that. So, well, I don't want to make it really difficult to really understand, but I think you kind of understand it a little bit here. So with breathing techniques, we utilize breathing techniques depending on the exercise. If you're just going to walk, what's the first thing you should do? Before I go over the pursed lip breathing, what's the first thing you should do? You should pursed lip breathe for 10 seconds. Why? What's the point of pursed lip breathing? It's not to control, not necessarily, it's actually not bad to empty your lungs. I like that. To release CO2, sure, but look, if I breathe in fast or slow, the volume is still the same. That means the air coming in will be the same percentages whether I do it fast or slow. Look at a cheetah. A cheetah is going 80 miles an hour. Is it breathing slow when it's going super fast, like 80 miles an hour? No, it's panting. Are they turning blue? No. Do they need albuterol treatment because they're out of breath? No. Okay, depending on the severity of the exercise, the more the body needs. But if you're breathing slow, you're only bringing in a little bit. So your respiratory rate has to be faster. The point of pursed lip breathing is to force the oxygen into the blood faster. But let's say I ask somebody to pursed lip breathe, or at least demonstrate pursed lip breathing, and they did something like this. I'll say, no, that's just breathing. No, I'm pursing my lips. It's not tight enough. Well, how do I know how tight my lips have to be? How do I know? Well, use a tissue technique. In this case, I'm going to use a piece of paper. I'm going to hold a piece of paper arm's length in front. Do not bend the arm. It's fully extended. If I can move this piece of paper, or tissue, because tissues work the best, if I can move this paper forcefully, not just a little bit, then that's the pressure I need. I just have to remember the pressure I used to move that tissue arm's length in front. So if I did this, and it's not really doing anything besides quivering a little bit, that pursed lip breathing won't work. I will not oxygenate faster. But if I did this, breathe in a little bit deeper, purse my lips a little bit tighter, then I can move that paper or that tissue more forcefully. That pressure I use to do that is what I want to do when I want to pursed lip breathe correctly. You will oxygenate faster. Remember, air comes in, right? So like if I breathe in, oxygen still comes in. As I pursed lip breathe, I force it to happen. So I'm manipulating it. I'm causing higher pressure in my chest. High pressure follows low pressure, meaning when you pursed lip breathe, you will oxygenate faster than regular breathing. It's just the way it is, okay? All right, so I'm going to pursed lip breathe for 10 seconds before standing up. Then as I walk, I use a 1:1 or 2:1 ratio depending on the exercise. If I'm not sure or I'm very anxious, I'm always going to use a 1:1. When I'm more relaxed and more comfortable with the exercise, I'm going to go with 2:1. Okay? Either of these will work. Never, ever, ever go to a 3:1. Always 1:1 and 2:1. It's always that. Okay? So I'm walking. I'm using a 1:1. I hyperoxygenated first. I pursed lip breathe for 10 seconds. I started walking. Inhale, exhale. I start finding my workup breathing is getting higher, so I confirm it with a talk test. My breathing is manageable. How out of breath am I? You're at an 8, too high. So I either need to breathe in deeper to get, remember, what's causing the out of breath? The CO2. So I need to slow my breathing down a little bit, all right? No, I don't want to slow my breathing down. I want to breathe in deeper. Maybe my respiratory rate isn't high enough, okay? Or my volume, the air into my lungs isn't enough. So I might need to breathe in deeper because what's causing the out of breath feeling? CO2. So I'm not exhaling enough out, okay? So one step inhale, one step exhale, all right? I say my breathing, I know that I'm at an 8, so I'm going to slow down just a little bit, breathing a little bit deeper. Keep that going for about 30 seconds without stopping. Do another talk test. My breathing is manageable. Where am I at now? According to a Borg scale with a talk test. At a 6, I'm saying 3 words every breath. What if I did this? My breathing is manageable, so my breathing is okay. Where am I at on my Borg scale? You're all the way down to nearly a 1 to a 0. Meaning you're not working hard enough. Okay? Guys, that's all we have for today. So there is another question on here, endurance issues. How can you help with that? So endurance means that, somebody's exercising and their body isn't developed enough to tolerate that exercise. They get winded too quickly, so that endurance is a problem. So on a workout, you always want to pick something that you enjoy doing. You know, you always want to pick something you enjoy doing, whether it be walking. If you enjoy walking, do you enjoy something else? Something that can increase your heart rate by 10 beats, usually a bike. You know, something you enjoy doing that's a good activity. Is it affordable? Is it easy to do? Can you do it in your own home? Whatever activity that can increase your heart rate might be the activity you want to do, okay? And no, sex does not fall into that, by the way. I get that a lot where it's like, well, can we just have, you know, sex is only for a short period of time, let's say, you know, but question, because I get that a lot is I have a hard time breathing and I want to get back into having sex with my partner. And I'm like, yeah, that's perfect. That's wonderful, actually. But, you know, that doesn't count as a good exercise because it's the longevity of the exercise is what counts. You want to be past 12 minutes. You know, so and it's a, you know, it's a great question, you know, with a good answer actually. But all right, the last question on here before I end it, even though I'm 2 minutes over, I do apologize. Can I improve my lungs? I have COPD. Of course you can improve your lungs. We do it all the time, but you have to come into the program to get that done. Joining a gym won't do it. I'm sorry, it won't. You know, after all the years people go to a gym with severe lung and heart issues. Unless you're doing breathing exercise, they stay the same. Okay, so a gym is not the answer. You want to go to pulmonary rehab. That's why you have clinicians like me that went to school for a long time to help people with their breathing problems. Everybody, that is it. I hope you enjoyed. You guys are awesome. I love that. We love you too. You're awesome. No, but that's true. But I will, my class, I'll see you guys tomorrow for the 6-minute walk test. And everyone have a great day, okay? Dr. Shaw will be coming in just a little bit. See you guys. Bye.